I'm your host, Pem Das. On today's episode 3 of Psychedelic Bible Study, we're going to take a look at the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel is a relatively short story. It is in Genesis 11, and it is only about 9 lines. I heard the story of Tower of Babel before I ever actually read it, and when I first heard it, I had heard that God came down to punish man because he was so prideful and thought he could be like God and built a tower all the way up to heaven, and that was the reason that God came down and caused confusion among men. However, that's not really quite the story, so I'm going to read it and then we'll have a little discussion here. The Tower of Babel, Genesis 11. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men were building. The Lord said, "If, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not try to understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it is called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So that's basically the story in the Bible. As you can see, it's not necessarily that man is prideful. It's that they've actually cooperated. They become successful, and in getting along, they're able to build a city and equal that of God. Again, God doesn't want man to ever equal him. This is the same God that basically lied to Adam and Eve. This is now the same God that came down to confuse mankind when they were being successful. In fact, one of the things we have here is the reference to us. These primitive people were polytheistic. There was not just Yahweh. Yahweh was one of these gods. I believe El was considered the greatest of these gods. And ultimately, through the evolution of the religion, monotheism comes into play and Yahweh becomes the main god. But Yahweh, the Lord at this time, is actually somewhat of a trickster. He doesn't seem to be a loving or caring God. And the trickster is a character that is not necessarily evil, is not good. He doesn't really work towards anyone's real benefit. A modern-day example would be maybe the Joker in the Batman movie, specifically the Joker from the Heath Ledger portrayal. That particular Joker is just chaos. He is chaos in the organized crime world. He's chaos to civilization. He steals all this money from everybody and just burns it. He does not necessarily serve any purpose. So maybe in some ways and again, this character could be viewed as the devil if you were seeking good, or you could, see him as something like that. So the Native Americans, for example, didn't view these characters necessarily as evil or good, but kind of like tricksters to be avoided or understood that they're out to trick you. So maybe that's something to go on with all these covenants, because the very same guy just told Noah that he wouldn't, flood mankind again. But then here he comes down after his sons have repopulated the earth and become successful. He punishes them. So another last thought here is the idea of communication and how successful people can be as they communicate. And when you think about the effort of people learning, a language so that it makes it easier to get along with people, it really does allow us to overcome a lot of our problems and misunderstandings. So it's just fascinating to think about this, and maybe to think about Yahweh as a trickster God, and out of a pantheon of many gods back then. And then the Tower of Babel, again, depending on how you look at this, it doesn't sound like that man is prideful, but rather being successful and rivaling the gods, which they never seem to want to let us do. So I have no idea if that's true or not, but that's just how I read it, and it's something to think about. So thanks for listening.